I want to have a conversation about what's going on in this world right now, what's going on in this country specifically, and how we can see through the propaganda that we see on both sides of the political divides, and how we can respond appropriately once we are able to see what is actually going on. So you're ready for that kind of conversation?
I'm very ready.
Okay, great.
It's been a long time coming.
Nice. Yeah. We are live. I'm Kevin Ellerton, the founder of Meditation Magazine, and I'm here with Christina Tobin. She is the founder of Free and Equal, which is a nonprofit that runs these debates for third-party candidates like Jill Stein and others from the Libertarian Party, Constitution Party, and others. And these debates that you've hosted, I've seen them, they're so much better, in my opinion, than the normal two-party Democrats and Republicans who tend to be generally fighting with each other about details of things, where the debates that you host are actually deep discussions with each person presenting a different viewpoint and being respectful toward one another, which is so beautiful. And that is exactly why I wanted to talk to you, because I think you're doing exactly what needs to be done for this country. And I want to have a conversation about what's going on in this world right now, what's going on in this country specifically, and how we can see through the propaganda that we see on both sides of the political divides, and how we can respond appropriately once we are able to see what is actually going on. So you're ready for that kind of conversation?
I'm very ready.
Okay, great.
It's been a long time coming.
Nice. Yeah, and I mentioned before we started, I think disagreement about things is a good thing. Having conversations where we can see each other's perspectives and try to understand something that we might not agree with, I think that's a wonderful thing. And that's what will heal this country in the end. It's that type of dialogue and understanding. So I'm excited for it.
That's what our debates are about. You can have ideas from the left, right, the center. We also invite Democrats and Republicans, where more voices, more choices is our slogan. And we're here to break beyond the two-party paradigm. And so we recognize that we agree on more things than not, definitely. But man, at our debates, we had some different viewpoints from Constitution Party, Randall Terry, and Jill Stein on Israel and Gaza. And my role as a moderator is to say, hey, you can disagree in these ideas and you can attack the ideas, you can go after the ideas, but not each other's characters. And that's what our debates bring to the people. We bring about conversations which let the best ideas win, and that brings about the solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm excited to get into this conversation, but I do want to also do a little bit of meditation with you, because I know you have a background in spiritual practices. You had mentioned to me that you have spent a lot of time in Bali, which is pretty cool.
Since 2005.
Since 2005. That's a long time ago. That's,
yes.
What is that, 20 years?
Right out of college. Bought a one-way ticket there, and I stayed and lived there for 4 years.
4 years, yeah. And there weren't that many Americans in Bali at that time.
I only knew of one other American living on the island at that time, and so I got to experience the culture, and I go there pretty regularly every year or two, and I speak Bahasa Indonesia pretty well, the Indonesian language.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, a lot of Australians there, though, right? Still, there was a lot of Australians.
In certain parts, Sakuta and all, they gravitate, but mostly Hindu. The Balinese people is different from the rest of Indonesia. They're Hindu, while the rest of Indonesia is Muslim.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Giovanna, my wife, and I, we had spent some time in Bali, and one of my favorite parts of staying there was Nyepi. I don't know if you experienced a Nyepi. It's the silent day. Yeah, the silent day.
Several times.
Yeah, it was very meditative.
Yes. I have. That's everything goes quiet. I mean, even the animals. There's a silence. Nobody's driving that day, and yes, I've definitely been able to dive into the Nippy Day several times in Bali. It's one of my favorite days as well.
Yeah, and then when they march those like the big paper mache demons around, and they burn them at the end of the night. It's like, encountering your inner demons and then burning them and moving into a silent space of reflection. It's just a wonderful tradition. And it's interesting how they kind of lock everything down there for Niepi, and the police are out on the street. They don't let you do anything.
Nope.
Yeah, and maybe that will sort of come back in our conversation about like how government locks things down, and whether that's can be good at times or not good at times. Like in Niepi, it can be a good thing. Sort of.
Balinese culturally, they're used to it. It's something they do. They've practiced for quite some time, and so it's almost everybody just enjoys having that day off, stillness, meditation. They ask, and really practicing their Hindu ways and their culture, their religion. And first, one of my favorite moments in Bali, when I first went there, I was taken to a temple where they had Taoism and Chinese and Buddhism and Hinduism, and even like independent Catholic, and everybody went and paid their respect to all the different religions as well as their own.
Wow.
And I loved going to that and seeing the unity within a very peaceful place. So it is definitely a deep foundation that I've built in the work that I do by living in Bali so long at such a young age.
Yeah. Did you get to experience a lot of different kinds of meditation there, or any kind of like specific spiritual practices?
Yes. After 6 months there, I found myself sitting on the back of what's called sepeda motors, motorbikes, and I would go to the upacharas. So I would go to the temples where you really should have only been married to Balinese in order to go to, but the culture where I worked, and I really understood as much as I could, not being Balinese, the Balinese way. So I would go to the ceremonies quite a bit, upachara, and study and be with the Hindus and understand their ways.
Yeah, that's cool. They have a lot of cool stuff over there. I like those washing places.
They're Tirtha.
Yeah,
yes.
They're like fountains essentially that you go into. Very, very beautiful culture.
Very.
So I want to practice a little maybe deep breathing before we start. We can do like some slow deep breathing. We can do some fast deep breathing. The fast deep breathing energizes me because I can't drink caffeine. It gives me migraines. But the fast deep breathing is called coffee breath in the yogic Hindu traditions, where it's getting so much oxygen in and out of your body, kind of makes you tingle, and your whole head gets sort of lightheaded, but it fills your body with energy. And would you want to practice this with me for a moment?
I would love to.
Okay, I'm going to turn a little bit this way so that we're not like breathing too hard on each other. And then you can face this way.
Okay.
And then basically the instruction is, first, if you have a heart condition, it's not a good thing to practice. Do you have a heart condition?
No.
Okay, that's good. So what we can do is we can just breathe really deeply, inhaling and exhaling. And I'll just show you like a little bit of it. And try to get your belly to inflate on the inhales and deflate on the exhales. So you can see kind of like, and that gets a lot of energy, and that gets a lot of air flowing in and out. And that causes a lot of oxygen to be taken into your body, and a lot of carbon dioxide to be expelled from your body. And what that does is it reduces the acidity of your body, because carbon dioxide breaks down into acids. So it makes your body more alkaline. And then at the same time, it fills your body with energy. Your nervous system gets all this oxygen, and all these electrical signals are able to flow more strongly. So I like that because it gets me into this very sort of like high state where I can be able to engage in conversations in a way that I couldn't necessarily do if I wasn't in that state. So
all right.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Don't be afraid of the sensations. It can get intense.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We'll do just for a couple of rounds. Okay. Just, you can follow my breath. In, out, 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 fully in, fully out, fully in, fully out, fully in, fully out. Hold the breath out for a moment, like emptying the body of air. Just feeling the way that the body and the mind have changed, how they feel in this moment. And now take a deep inhale, holding the breath in for a moment, feeling how this feels in your body and your mind. And we're going to do one more round of the rapid breath. Okay, exhaling and deep rapid breathing. Last 5. Hold your breath out. Feeling any dizziness or tingling or lightheadedness? Feeling the energy moving through your body? Allowing the energy to flow through your nervous system, release any blockages, allow emotions to flow through. And now let's take a deep inhale. Hold it for a moment. And going back to normal breath, let's just sit in quiet and stillness. Just being here in this moment. In this body, in this universe. Just feeling what it feels like to be alive in this moment. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes gently, remaining grounded in the body, aware of the breath. And be here in this space together. Hey.
Hello.
Isn't that nice?
Yes.
I love that way.
It's nice being here and meeting you and being around your space and this beautiful what you've created for our world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, I have a few magazines for you. I'll give them to you before you leave.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What a gift. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm excited to get started with talking about maybe a little bit about your story. You started in Bali, as we discussed. I mean, maybe you didn't start there. You were in college. What did you study, by the way, in college?
Graphic design and business marketing and the arts.
Sounds perfect for a moderator of political debates.
Makes art, politics, spirituality coming together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I start from is
the arts. This is why you make the best debates. That's why.
Thank you. Yeah,
probably the other people studied political science, I'm guessing. And then they're all angry about things and stuff. You're trying to bring peace. It's nice. So you went to school for graphic design and arts, and then you went to Bali and lived there for a few years and practiced with the Hindus and experienced all kinds of cool spirituality. And then you went into politics. Is that what happened, or what was the journey like?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up around an Italian family, and they raised me. So I wasn't around politics at all until I was about 11 or 12. And I met my biological father when I was 13, Jim Tobin, and political for sure. Economic professor out of Elmhurst College, and he ran the largest tax fighting organization in Illinois. So 2013, I'm sorry, at 13 years of age, I misspoke. I was around millions of stacks of papers, and I asked Dad, "What's this?" And it was a petition drive for term limits. So I had been exposed to it in a positive way. Ballotpedia founder, Paul Jacob, my dad, just like, what's term limits? And then My dad in 1998 ran for governor of Illinois as a third-party candidate, libertarian. And that's when I started learning about the flaws of the electoral system when I was 17, when I saw my dad wrongfully knocked off the ballot. He had gathered over 60,000 signatures. The requirement was 25,000 for third-party candidates, independents, while only 5,000 for Ds and Rs. And because he was at the peak of his career and a threat to the system, the hearing officer recommended to be placed on the ballot, but he was knocked off the ballot. So my dad sued the Illinois state court, went Supreme Court. He lost, but I was called by electoral reform expert Richard Winger, which I've now become an electoral reform expert as well, the silver lining of 98. And so 4 years later, I coordinated my dad's ballot drive, got him on the ballot. And then after college, right when I graduated, I took a semester off to get dad on the ballot for lieutenant governor in Illinois successfully. And then right when I finished college, I was about to go to Bali, and Ralph Nader gave me a call and said, I'd like to hire you for my statewide drive. Went to Bali 4 years after doing that drive, came back in 2008. And then I worked as the National Ballot Access Coordinator for Ralph Nader. Somehow in between that time, also, I helped get probably dozens, 20, 30, 50 candidates on the ballot. Democrats, Republicans. I would do a Democratic and Republican ballot drive for governor simultaneously and wouldn't choose one over the other, as well as third-party independent candidates. So I'm truly an independent person, always have been, that supports more voices and more choices. And so that's how it began in 2008 after getting Ralph on the ballot in 45 states plus DC. It takes 938,000 signatures for an independent to get on the ballot for president. That's what it was for RFK Jr. this last cycle. Only 25 to 50,000 for Ds and Rs. So after I successfully did that drive, we didn't have money for all 50. So we went for 45 in DC and achieved that, which was astronomical miracle in itself. I was able to offset the DNC challenges in 2004. They succeeded, knocked Nader off the ballot in 32 states. But in any case, that sparked the creation of the work that I do today. On top of ballot access still is the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, a nonprofit in 2008. Ralph, after he got on the ballot, hosted and put on this Open the Debates rally. And that's when I learned that the Commission on Presidential Debates controlled the debates, creating this illusion that there's only two parties. And so Free and Equal hosted the first nationally televised debate in 2008 outside of the CPD, Commission on Presidential Debates. And we've been hosting presidential debates every cycle since.
Wow, that's it sounds like an amazing journey. And to get started with Ralph Nader, obviously is one of those people that seems like he was really in it for the right reasons.
Yes, he was.
And I think there are people sort of on both sides of the, let's say, the political spectrum, the right and the left, that we think of that as the political spectrum, that have that kind of altruism. And I'm glad that you're able to find some of those people and bring them together and do these debates that you're doing right now. And I want to ask you, how do you feel your meditation or spiritual perspective that you gained maybe partly in Bali, how do you feel that has affected your perspective on politics and politicians and, what's right and what's wrong to do in this country?
It's had a profound impact on my life. Going there was the best decision I could have ever done for myself, removing myself from pretty much everything in the US for 4 years, a reset, reground, spiritual island, and experiencing at that time very profound for me. At the same time, I've chosen the last 13, 14 years to live in what's known as a charming little town, Cambria, California, next to Big Sur, San Luis Obispo County on the water. I go jade hunting. I'm by the Hearst Castle. Big Sur hunting and not hunting, hiking, I meant to say, and just being the vortex there. The magic of Lemuria is so deep. I actually own a jewelry shop too called Bali Gems. I opened 5 years ago, so I have stones and gems from around the world, Bali as well, and often I'll pop into the shop, having a full-time manager there, and I'll pop in from time to time to reground and be around the stones that Mother Earth has created and surrounded us with. And that's an energetic vortex for me as well on top of Bali. So bringing Cambria and Bali together, Bali gems. There's a lot of meditation practices that come through the town that I've done, in the Tai Chi to breath work and restorative yoga through so many beautiful people, and music as well, and 432 hertz frequency, which is so key in healing our nation, music, the healer. So those are some things that come to mind, and that we spoke before for meditative practices. But to carry something of this magnitude, I continuously find myself in a meditative state of mind.
Yeah.
Around the clock.
Yeah, you have to kind of, otherwise it can be very overwhelming. There's with even just with Meditation Magazine and the businesses that I run, it can get very overwhelming when you're doing something on some at scale, and you have so many people that are relying on you, all the subscribers and all the people that work on things. And I know you're in a similar position with the organizations that you run and the debates that you manage, and it can be very overwhelming to do that if you're just in that sort of stress mode all the time. So to be able to take a step back into a meditative state of mind can really help, especially if we live in it for most or all of the time. It can be really helpful to be able to encapsulate the life, and instead of feeling like you're spinning as a sort of a part of the whirlwind, you can kind of be the calm at the center of the storm.
It's true. I go back to Bali every year or two. I'll be going to Colombia in a couple months to meet the Kogis, the mamos, the grandmothers are calling me in to be there. So I'm going to Nepal in the future with the Rinpoche family, to the monastery, to visit the children, orphans that have been taken in. So these are the moments that so many throughout the world and nation, in my own little town and throughout the world. But I'm able to, what I've learned and advice I would love to pass on to those who are younger, I wish I had known, is that I always had a real tight timeline. My 20s, I got to get this done, this timeline. And now at 43 years of age, I am at a point where I don't have a timeline. I am in it for the journey, not a race. And so I have somewhat of a timeline, but I do what I can at the same time, being present, taking time away, whether it's regrounding wherever you need to go. And then when you come back, you find that energy comes your way, the calling, the people, the support, when you're in that state of mind. So if I can pass on any advice, it's to release that timeline a little and be focused on the bigger picture.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's so important, to be able to focus on the journey rather than the outcome.
Yes.
And I was speaking to Marianne Williamson a few weeks ago. She, maybe you share some views with her and some that you don't. But when I was interviewing her, she was talking about how she felt like the democracy in this country is falling apart and things like that. And I was trying to kind of push back on some of the things that I felt were alarmist or sensationalist. But, she even compared this time period to the 1940s in Germany. And I think, there maybe are some parallels and some that are not so parallel. But when we were talking, it seemed like she felt like there was almost no hope. And I asked her, so why are you still doing this? Why are you still fighting if you think that there's no hope and you can't win? And she said, it's not about winning. It's about standing for what you believe in. And I think it's a very similar sort of insight to what you're expressing, standing for what you believe in, going on the journey, rather than worrying too much about winning or the outcome or what the timeline is. Just doing what you feel is right, because that's what you need to do for yourself and for the world.
Marianne just went through a complete media blackout. I mean, she crossed from the spiritual to the political realm, which very few do. And that's admirable. I met her when she ran as an independent for Congress in California the first time, 33rd district. And because of the passage of the Prop 14 top 2 primary that year, which means only the top 2 vote getters in the primary advance to the general election, so it could be 2 T's, 2 R's, though she had raised so much money and had artists that were well known representing her campaign, she couldn't break through that flaw of the electoral system that the 2-party system creates so they can keep re-electing their own. Wow, she decides to run for president. I mean, can we all agree that from her first run to the second, the amount of knowledge and what she had gained from the first to seconds just astronomical? She's going to go through a moment of feeling a little less hope, but she's going to come out of that even stronger. And I sit here with so much hope hope and change. It's no coincidence that the Obama administration used words as hope and change. It's part of the psychological indoctrination, because following the money of his campaign, as well as previous left, right, Clinton, Bush, to me, there's not really a difference. I follow the money, and we are going to elect people and leaders into office, leaders that are already leading in their community, that aren't yearning to run, looking to run for office, but are going to be asked by their community, like Representative Thomas Massey, to run. So when Marianne sees that independent movement rise, she actually invited me to dinner this past Christmas. So it was great to really connect with her on a friendship, heart-to-heart level, politics mostly aside, just hanging out. So this is to be expected when you could get, held back as much as Marianne did, but she'll come around.
Yeah, I think that her hope, she lost a lot of hope because of the way that the Democratic Party treated her. But I think that she holds out hope that in the long run, things are going to be okay. Good. I think what she's looking at right now that is disturbing to her is the way that the current administration is dismantling some parts of the government. And some people in this country, and even in the spiritual community, I think, see this as a positive thing, dismantling corrupt institutions and reducing the spending that we're doing, reducing the national debt, while others see it as dismantling checks and balances of democracy, defying the judicial system, and consolidating power into the hands of very few people. And I don't know how you see it, and I'd love to get into that in a few minutes. But one of the things that really strikes me about the whole situation is that aside from the value judgments that we make about whether something is good or not, we also get so much misinformation and propaganda from all the mainstream media and even social media that it's hard to even know what's actually happening. And if we don't even know what's actually happening in factual reality, it becomes even harder to engage and to try to make a difference. Maybe you have a good perspective or more clear perspective than I do into the workings of the political realm and what's going on right now. And I'd love to get into that in a minute. But I just wanted to say one of the reasons that I care so much about understanding what's going on and taking the right action is I grew up in a Jewish family. In the Jewish schools that I attended, we learned about what happened to our grandparents. My grandmother, her whole family was killed in the Holocaust, and she was one of the only survivors. And she went through the concentration camps and all of that. And I saw her whole life, the effects of that. And what we were taught in school was what's needed for evil to flourish is for good men to sit by and do nothing. Good men and women to sit by and do nothing. There's a quote about that. I don't remember the exact words. And I always took that to heart. And while I may not have kept the religion part, I did keep that value of standing up for what's right. But now when I watch, for example, CNN, and I see people grossly misquoting or misrepresenting things that, for example, Donald Trump said, it makes me lose trust that the media is giving me accurate information. When I look at both, what I consider both propaganda channels at CNN, Fox, and all their, similar channels, I just kind of treat it as propaganda. I'm like, okay, this is the propaganda they're giving us today. And then when I go on social media, I'm also aware that the bubbles, the algorithms are set to just show me what I like. So I try to actually look at stuff that I disagree with to try to get enough of a stream of things that are against my current views. And what ends up happening is I see these different bubbles in the social media where this bubble, everybody believes one thing. And in this other bubble, everybody believes a totally different thing about factual reality, not just about what should happen, but what actually is happening. So with all this propaganda, I guess my question to you is, do you have any kind of way of seeing through that? Do you see the propaganda that I'm talking about? Do you see the misinformation out there? And how do you see through it to actually see what's real?
Well, regarding your grandmother, with technology in the blockchain decentralized world, I foresee that's a game changer where we don't need to continue to have the chaos that we're having in Israel right now and Gaza. And it does not matter what country you're from. We all choose love, really. We really do. And so we don't need to have this needless chaos anymore. And I think the blockchain world is going to bring about more transparency to keep that chaos from happening. And that's a big question. There were a lot of thoughts there. So bear with me. I need a notepad next to you.
So no, don't even think of it as a question. Think of it as just like me kind of thinking through what I'm experiencing as part of this country, as a member of the United States, and also somebody who wants to make things better. And
with media, they really meant it when they said the revolution will not be televised. And there's different meanings to the song, but I take it as I knew when 9/11 happened, whatever your take is on 9/11, the NDA and Patriot Act came about where people could suddenly detain you, meaning the government, without trial or jury, remove you from home. And that's when I knew, oh, they're going to definitely censor us on social media. So I decided strategically to put most of our proceeds towards building not only the presidential debate since 2008. Many of you may have seen the 2012 debate co-moderated by Larry King and myself, reaching modestly tens of millions, maybe hundreds. I like the low on the low end. And so, but I knew there'd come a day where we would need to really rise as a nation, and there would be full-on censorship. So have we been completely shadow banned on social media for free and equal? Beyond measures. I mean, our teams, I've worked with the teams from Anti-Media to Jason Bass, our Free Thought Project. He coordinates our social media and a lot more. They're like, Christina, we have never seen a shadow ban like yours, free and equal. I'm like, well, thanks for the compliment, system. I guess we're doing something right. So I keep building from the ground up, because when you do that, it's unstoppable. And so yeah, censorship is an issue. Big reason why I decided to break beyond the presidential debates in 2014, when I heard Congressman Dr. Paul Thomas Massey. They're so similar. I love them both. This is a huge compliment to both. But Dr. Paul has said, if we're ever going to bring about revolutionary changes, two things would need to be involved: the youth and music. And that's when Free and Equal Elections began hosting the annual United We Stand Festival, uniting conscious artists and thought leaders, imagine organizations, a coalition building around it, conscious businesses, people running for office. There'll be congressional candidates primarily running as independents that will be invited to speak throughout the tour, and online debates, TikTok, town hall, so on, that will be building that from the ground up. The Free and Equal Network.tv will also come into play. And it's a very big vision. We've been hosting it Free and Equal for 10 years, and we're breaking out into a tour next summer, 8 stops across the country. And incorporating blockchain technology, I can dive a bit more deeper into that. But we'll have also panelists, independent media, that will be a part of that tour, that will be interviewed. And so when an idea comes, we all know historically, when that idea comes, when 3 to 4% of the population comes around it, there's nothing that's going to stop it.
Yeah. Wow. That's very powerful perspective. I would like to understand a little bit more about how blockchain is going to solve this. Maybe now is a good time to ask about that, because I think that there's sort of two streams of thought that I'm going into in this conversation. One is, how do we see reality and know what's actually going on? And the other is, what do we do about it when we see what's going on? So in the stream of thought of what is actually going on, how do we see what's actually going on, how do you see blockchain influencing that?
Well, the history of the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, I always knew we'd come into a time of confusion, because that's also how they drag things out. I mean, we know historically they've pulled out of documents, and inserted false things to make it seem like everything is not true. Confuse, and divide, and so on. And we're going a bit through a lot of that. When I'm learning, and I'm no expert, I have a team of experts building the blockchain app. I have an understanding that decentralized platform is the way to go. When we'll just kind of tap into the voting a little bit. The Trump administration, Elon, are looking into blockchain voting on a centralized ledger. that is not the solution. It's still controlled and needs to be on a decentralized ledger. But imagine a decentralized ledger, which we will build into the United We Stand for. In fact, we already launched the blockchain app last year. The people casted 50, 60, I don't know how many thousands of votes to vote in the top 6 candidates they wanted in our, one of our first presidential debates, because I'm not going to decide. I let the people decide. And the people voted their favorite candidates as well. And so the coder and developer for our blockchain app, Colin Cantrell, his dad, Jim Cantrell, co-founded SpaceX with Elon Musk. We're going to be plugging in every single candidate running for office. These are third parties, independents. You get it. So we'll be able to see which candidates really represent us, which ones don't. Then it's going to break into media. Then it's going to break into, the health administration, into science, to technology, whatever it is. Because when we can see the good candidates serving, our people, we the people, when we can see good companies. I mean, technology is not going anywhere. AI is here to stay, just like arguably guns are here to stay. They're not going away. How can we make it the most peaceful? We put our money behind the ideas that we know have good intention. And that's the future. That's what I see. So we're going to be able to, we're not quite there yet, but I'm working with different platforms like Unpress and others. A big event we're doing in the Hamptons as well from the sidelines this August, and recently at West Palm Beach, where I was a keynote speaker at Global Passion Projects. But entities like Unpress are going to be also portals plugged into the app and the movement that we want to build from the ground up, so we can see which independent journalists we can trust, which journalists we can trust, and which ones we cannot.
So by bringing this in voting into a blockchain app, I can see how that could, make sure that it's 1 vote per person or something like that. But how is that able to show us who's lying and who's not? For example, when they're conflicting claims about something that a president did or a candidate did or didn't do, or something that they said or didn't say, it's very hard to even untangle what's true and untrue, because first of all, people are just constantly lying on these the channels on CNN and Fox and all those others. And when they make these false claims or misleading claims, let's say half truths or propaganda, then it's hard to know what somebody said or did or didn't do. And they sort of paint it as if one person, for example, Donald Trump or Elon Musk, one side will paint them as evil and dictators. The other side will paint them as altruistic people who are just like sort of libertarian and wanting to break down the overreach of government. And you have such different characterizations and different facts being presented by both sides. So is there a way that blockchain can help with that? And if not, do you have any other ideas of how we can see reality?
Yes. What I see with the current administration with Trump, Elon, Tulsi, Bobby, I focus on the good. I'm the hope and the change, and they are doing some great things. Some would say they're breaking away from the government too much. Some would say they're doing it so they can rebuild it back up structurally. That's the art of how Trump works and probably likely to do. However, there's still money in politics that are holding, and I know firsthand, candidates like RFK Jr. back. He can only do so much in his position. He's doing great things, but without the control of the money, as Thomas Massey came out last year vocally, every member of Congress has a babysitter called AIPAC, lobbyists. It doesn't matter to me. These are a few powerful people in a country that don't represent the beautiful Jewish community, and vice versa. And Hamas and the Palestine, Gaza is just a few people that don't have the best intention, greed, money. Most people are beautiful in all those parts of the world. So what we need is something that's truly independent beyond the two-party system to rise, a truly independent paradigm outside of the flawed two-party system. Do I think blockchain voting is going to be one of many components that will bring about integrity? That's my understanding from the coders and developers. There's going to be ways to plug in to know what's real, what isn't real. I'm not at the level yet to explain that in detail, but that's what I've been told by the coders and developers, which I'll have on the tour, so they can talk about how we can build this, how we can code this, how we can develop this. When it comes to voting, it's great that, Trump's like, we need a paper ballot, but why not also incorporate blockchain voting when you cast a paper ballot? Wouldn't you like to get a 10 or 15, 20 digit code where you can go on a blockchain ledger and see that your paper ballot was casted? I would. And so there's ways to secure this, and the current administration is doing the best they can, I would say, in some ways. And there's also the business side to Trump. I mean, we know what we've got with him. But again, I'm grateful that there are some good things happening. But do we deserve even better? Yes. And we're going to have better in the future.
Right. Yeah. I can see the blockchain voting will help a lot. And I agree with you 100% that that's the best way to go in terms of voting. I'm still a little lost in terms of seeing the reality of things. And I think that part of meditation and part of my practice of meditation and is questioning our own thoughts and beliefs, seeing that the thoughts that arise are just thoughts, that the beliefs that arise are just beliefs, and that they flow through and that they change over time and that they come and go, and that there are some that come and conflict with one another. And so I think that with that introspective perspective, it allows us to look beyond what one side or the other is trying to tell us. And so what I want to do is I want to go through some of the things that are happening right now with you, and we can see how our perspectives might align or differ, and we can kind of try to talk through how you see things and how I see things, and to understand, because I think a lot of people in this country are divided on this political spectrum of left and right, which I don't think is the only part of the political. There's also a, dictatorial versus sort of free, or, there's a lot of different spectra that you can look at. But in left and right, I think that in the spiritual community, there's a lot of people that are in the libertarian side, and then there's also a lot of people that are in the sort of Green Party side. And I think both of those are sort of at the free end of the political spectrum. You know what I mean? The freedom end. Rather than the dictatorship end. And I think that we both value that. I think probably we both value freedom over dictatorship, but we may have some differences in our view of how much government do we need in order to solve certain problems. Is it good for the government to get involved in certain aspects of our lives, or others, or not to be involved in those aspects? And I think it will be really fascinating for me and you to talk about it, because we both have sort of a spiritual perspective. And we both have, I think, kindness toward the foundation of our value system: kindness, peace, love. And so I think our values are really pretty aligned. And I just want to know where we're seeing things differently, because to me, that's fascinating. And most of the people that I've interviewed recently have been more like, Green Party oriented, or liberal minded, you could say. So I want to go through a few specific things. We can start with, let's say, the immigration policies of the current administration, the deportations that are happening. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I am definitely becoming more of an expert in different topics. This one I am able to start to dive into, but my goodness, why do we make the law so difficult for immigrants? I mean, first and foremost, there are many that want to be law-abiding citizens, and the laws are just too strict. So, I mean, they're alone. I mean, that's across the board something to fix. Tough one. I mean, it's, I think that the previous administration used it to their benefit for votes. Flaws, use the human lives for votes. That's not right. That's not fair. There's a taxation. Do we blame it all on the fact that immigrants are, look at the military industrial complex and many other flaws of the system where money is being not used. But on immigration, I mean, the cartels, let's just decriminalize it. Like Portugal, let's just decriminalize it right there alone. I mean, a lot of people are leaving Mexico, and there's other parts of the world. It's wrapped around drugs. Come on, Trump, decriminalize it. Let's get to the root of the problem here, because it's a business that's going to exist. And when you make it to where it's not as prosperous, right? Like what they did with marijuana, it's not as prosperous. There's a few that, but that's really the key right there. And you're not going to have as many people flooding all of these countries. And here we sit building walls, when I would first decriminalize drugs. And yes, I understand that there's going to be certain addicts that if they want to get their hands on drugs, they will. And if the drugs are less expensive, maybe they'll have more, but we can also put that money into building restorative systems to heal these individuals and rehab. So it's a broad answer. I don't know if that's kind of,
No,
but I
love that.
focus on the solutions, like let the law abiding people be here. Building walls, people can get around walls. It just, I mean, they're going
Or
to.
over.
And there's that
Yeah.
under, around, flyover. I mean, we've got
There are
things.
airplanes.
I just saw a drone plane the other day, you know, just boop, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the reality. So those are my first thoughts of many.
Yeah, I like your focus on marijuana policy, cannabis policy, as a partial solution, at least, to the immigration issues that are, and not just the immigrations, the cartels that are at the core of Trump's immigration policies. It's like, oh, these drug cartels, we need to deport everyone. But if we would cut off the problem at the root, which is, the drug war that creates the cartels in the first place, then it would be much better. It's interesting to see that actually Marianne Williamson was when she was on the stage, she was talking about that on the debate stage in 2020. She was saying about immigration policy, why are we not talking about that? The failed war on drugs that's creating all the problems. And it's interesting that, while you may be coming from like a libertarian point of view, and she might be coming from more of like a, leaning towards socialist point of view, like the Green Party and things like that, because she does value the sort of big government, I think, more than you seem to. Interestingly, we converge on this cannabis policy as, hey, why are we doing that? That's crazy. This is causing the problems. And I think that's where we're at that part of the political spectrum where we value freedom rather than being controlled. Why should we not have freedom around what choices we make with the things that we smoke or eat or vape?
Right. Right. And it just, I do foresee, that what's happening with the current administration, people are, they're trying to cut it back down to the origins of the Constitution about the size of what the government, according to the Constitution, should be. And when we get people elected in Congress, 435 seats, I'd like to keep Thomas Massey there. And I hope someone like him runs as an independent. That's my free and equal cap on the side. Personally, runs as an independent for president. I think he could spark something really special there, and many other independents. But when we see most of Congress, D's and R's alike, replaced with independent candidates, and maybe many will use the party line to get elected. Trump did. I know that. That's another historical. I could dive into why. I used the party line to get elected. He had once inquired my ballot access company to ask what it would take to get on the ballot as an independent for president. I'm sure you realize that going up against the system, he probably would have been knocked off. But in any case, these sort of solutions will come about, over time with when we get the right people in Congress. So when we do, I see a lot of them being younger, all ages, all races. It's about the heart of the person, right? And serving the people. And I do foresee many of them having experience with technology, blockchain as well. And can we shift the power from the federal to state and even local level where people can see how much money they're spending? Like, let's have the government, but let's see how it's being spent and not being wasted. I mean, we look at this insider trading. I mean, it's a big thing, at the Pelosi and even Marjorie, left, right. It's not right to do that. So when we have the right people in office, this isn't even going to be a factor, and they're going to be happy to pass laws to keep things from happening like that. So the solutions are there. I'm really big on, we can agree across the board on 70 to 80% of the issues. That's why the two-party systems exist, to divide and conquer. And that's why I don't believe in political parties. Even within the National Green and Libertarian Constitution parties in my 25, now 30 years, somehow 25, 26 years in the electoral arena, I have seen all of those parties become infiltrated as they become larger. National becomes disconnected from the state parties. The campaigns are running it on their own. I mean, the Libertarian Governor Gary Johnson and Jill Stein, they at times were really not friends with the national parties. They're their own entities. So it's so disconnected. And why not put all these candidates? We're just going to put all these independent candidates and beyond on the ledger and let the people choose for which one's best for them. So a lot of these challenges you're bringing up, immigration, and we can go into climate control, we can go into abortion, we can go there's solutions for all of them when we get the right people in office, targeting Congress first, and then the rest will follow. When we rise here in the United States of America, the whole world is going to follow us, and it's going to take the arts and the music mentioned before, the 432 hertz frequency, music's the healer. We're going to have a party and make it fun, getting people elected and getting involved and bring transparency. And there's going to be so much hope and change on the horizon. We're not even going to know what to do with it. It's beautiful.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you're focused on solutions. You seem like a very solution oriented person, and what you're talking about is hopefully the future. What I am concerned about at this point, first of all, that gives me a lot of hope. I just want to say, if you're successful in doing what you're doing,
you have to be. The ladder's not an option. I'm a solutionist.
I know. I see it. And if you're successful in doing what you're doing, it will revolutionize the government here in the United States.
Yes,
and
it will.
And it will solve a lot of the problems. And I think, sort of that direct democracy, the voting through, I guess it's not exactly direct democracy, but at least getting closer to it by voting through blockchain. Maybe there can be referenda on issues that people can vote on specific issues. That would be interesting on national issues on blockchain.
And even better things are going to come in the future beyond blockchain. Like there's going to, I feel it. I see it. I hear it.
Hopefully.
Yes, I already hear it.
You're very optimistic.
I know a lot of people too. I have a lot of very connected to a lot of people, so I can see things in foresight because of hearing from mentors and experts.
That's good. You're surrounding yourself with positive people. That's good.
Yes.
I sometimes hear people talking about technology as a sort of dystopian force, AI taking over as, becoming like autonomous drones and robots and stuff, like taking over the world. There's some scary stuff in technology as well, but I tend to agree. I tend to be more optimistic about it. At least I'm hopeful anyway that the technology will make the world a better place, as it has been for hundreds or thousands of years, and that eventually we will find ourselves in a better spot than we currently are in. But going back to that sort of analogy of the 1940s, when those people sat around and didn't, a lot of Germans, let's say 90% of Germans, were just, not doing anything. They wouldn't stand up to stop what was happening. And when I see things that could be problematic in our country, I wonder, is it the right thing to do right now for me to stand up and say, hey, this is not good? The thing that stops me from doing that is because there are, I think, real alternative views that are opposite from mine or different from mine, that see the things that I see as bad as positive. So as an example, we were talking about the deportations and the immigration policy. So when I bring that up, you're thinking about the cartels and the cannabis policy, and that is a good solution long term. But for what's happening right now, so I see stories in the news, for example, there's two stories that I think stick out in my head. There's one with the guy Abrigo Garcia in Maryland, who was not supposed to be deported to El Salvador based on a judge's order, father of four or whatever, got deported, ended up in this mega prison. And on the left, you see this very, very intense, hey, this is terrible. Like, this is a no due process. This person was deported. He's a father. He needs, like, his children need him. And then on the other side of the spectrum, when I go onto X, on x.com, on the app that used to be called Twitter.
That one.
Yeah. So Twitter was an easier name. It's just, you didn't have to explain what you're saying when you say Twitter. But anyway,
enough.
On X, I saw people talking about it. Everybody was just talking about how he was swept up in a MS-13 gang raid, basically, where there was MS-13 gang members were coming together, and the police or ICE or whatever raided that and then deported all of those guys. Whereas in all of the articles, in all of the mainstream media sources that I was seeing, were essentially making it sound like he was just an innocent guy at home. And it's really hard to tell what's real. So if we can figure out what's real, it helps us to be able to say, okay, I should stand up against this. This guy was deported without due process. It's wrong. And then you see other people, like this South Florida woman who went to an immigration facility with her 1-year-old baby, and was essentially torn away from her crying baby and sent to Cuba.
Saw that.
Yeah, very sad. That made me very upset and angry. But if I'm seeing only certain parts of the information, I don't know the whole story. And do you think that you have a way of seeing the whole story? And what are your thoughts on like right now, the deportations that are happening? Do you think that that should be happening? Do you think it shouldn't be happening? Do you think it should be done in a different way?
We will be able to see it. We're not there yet. We will. And I agree with you. There's this art of confusion implemented by the system, and it's not okay. And I don't like it. And there's people's lives that are at stake. And whenever you're doing something, especially deporting lives and human beings, there's going to be error. And what I don't like is that the current administration isn't owning that error. Deport 100 people, whoops, we need to return these 2 and make that happen. That's how you do it under a pure administration. You don't stand there and say, everything's right the way it is. You go in there and fix the errors. And so but on the benefit of the doubt, can they see the errors? I don't know. I would hope so. So this is a problem we have to work through. And I think I foresee technology will be able to get us there. And back to independent movement. I mean, we have media we cannot trust across the spectrum. I'm really not into politics, but I am doing this because it's a duty to the people and our nation. And no one else is doing it. And I cannot be here in this moment on earth and be okay being here on earth, not doing this. It's the cards I was dealt, because I know the success of this tour and this movement. United We Stand, it brings tears in my eyes, and it's what keeps me going, is going to present the presidential debates in 2028 and building that blockchain component around it on a decentralized ledger. I don't own Free and Equal. I'm a visionary, and I know how many lives I cannot bring back what we've already lost, but I sure am going to be able to prevent so much more loss in the future. And so it just saddens me that we cannot see the families that have not been justly treated, and all the more reason why I will continue to push forward with the work that I do to help heal our nation from within and inevitably our world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for getting deep in your response here. I see your passion for making this country better through fixing the 2-party system, or getting rid of the 2-party system and implementing something better. I agree with you that that is a long-term more important in the long run than any of these other issues that we're dealing with that are flooding the media cycles. You know, they're talking about the deportations and the consolidation of power and tariffs and the DEI and things like that, Doge. And all of these issues are, you could say, a symptom of a broken system that doesn't allow for good candidates to actually rise up. But at the same time, I'm still very curious, if it's okay. I'd love to ask you about some other issues, because the seeing you're one of the first people that I'm talking to that I think has somewhat of a different vantage point or perspective on some of these issues than what I'm used to getting from the people that I've interviewed over the past couple of weeks. One of those issues, let's say, is the consolidation of power. I think that's a really interesting one that goes hand in hand with Doge dismantling government agencies in the name of government efficiency, reducing waste and fraud. Obviously, everybody wants to reduce waste and fraud. That's wonderful. But at the same time, some of the things that they're dismantling could be important parts of the government. And just as an example, we in Miami saw one of the Starship explosions. I started following Elon Musk at the beginning, like right when he founded Tesla, and when he sort of bought Tesla, but he made it into something. And I was a big fan of his. I think that he was, maybe still is, trying to save humanity, get us to Mars, stop us from going extinct. He seemed and sort of still seems like an altruistic dude. But then when the FAA stopped him from launching more Starships, because there were 2 that exploded in a row, one of them over the Caribbean, one of them over Miami, and we saw I didn't get to see it live. I was sad because it was right there if we looked out the window. But there was a huge streaks across the sky of this like raining debris over the ocean. If that had exploded in a different spot, it could have rained debris over Miami. Like it wasn't that far off. And that's kind of apocalyptic. And the FAA said, hey, let's do an investigation. After the first explosion, they said, hey, let's do an investigation before you launch another one. Then Doge goes in, guts the FAA, and the FAA is like, okay, you can go launch more Starships if you want to, because he didn't get rid of the people that were pro Starship. And then that one explodes over Miami. So thankfully, nobody seems to have been killed by that explosion, and the debris rained into the ocean rather than on Miami. But you could see very easily a different scenario having played out, where it's sort of an apocalyptic scenario where the FAA says, you can't launch more Starships. He's like, you know what, we need to get to Mars. I'm going to go fix this and reduce the bureaucracy, then launch another one. Then a lot of people die. That can happen. And that's what the government regulators are for, in my view, to protect people from sort of out of control corporations and people that want to move fast with potentially risking people's lives. So my question, I guess, to you is, what do you think about this reduction of bureaucracy that Doge is doing, where you could see it in this positive light of reducing waste and fraud, reducing government bureaucracy, moving us faster toward the technological utopia that we all hope for, but at the same time also allows people like Elon to just go and do crazy stuff that could kill people, and also allows Trump and his group to take as much power as they want. And if they want to become the next Maduro or Castro or Putin, then they pretty much can do that if they want to.
I mean, the first time Trump really lost me, and I'm very benefit of the doubt, was when Thomas Massie, the sole member of Congress, came out against the recent debt increase, budget proposal increase, and unsustainable. And Trump went at Thomas Massie. And I just took a step back and I said, did he just really add more momentum to the independent movement? Because here's Massie voting his conscience. And there's reasons, but as an independent perspective, I think he had a moment where he felt like he could lose power here, for the next presidential or so, because Massie, him saying, well, just vote for this debt increase bill, budget increase, that is, that same budget increase bill, because we're going to make it less in 3 to 6 months. Well, fortunately, Massie did not, as he would, compromise his conscience, because I haven't seen him do that ever. And the debt is still, nothing has changed, and Massie's talking about that. So this tells me there's power, and it's a problem. And so I go back to focusing on the good. FAA is not perfect. The government's not perfect. Does there need to be some cutback? 10% across the board for everything? 20%? Probably. I mean, we see a lot of waste, and getting it, again, solutions down the road where the people can vote how they want to spend their tax dollars. I want to be able to vote and say, yeah, I don't want to spend it on war. And that's what's going to happen in the future with technology and so on. So we know in the past the government's gone after Elon. He was able to prevail, get subsidized by the government. And is there a vendetta there? Maybe, maybe not. FAA. I don't know enough about the missile, the launch and the FAA, but the extent of it is that, Elon, why don't you just have your rocket go somewhere that's not over Miami? I mean, that's it. Why do we need to battle the FAA? Why do we need to make this if it's a political, from what I'm going by what you're saying, because it's just not my field's like electoral. Eventually I'll be really on top of all of these topics. I'm on my way. But it's just like, do the right thing and don't put people's lives at risk, because these things do blow up. So it's just not okay, FAA or not. So I don't like seeing these personalities and political battles go back and forth when it's the people's lives, to me, that are the priority. And that's, as an independent, a movement, love wins, compassion wins, the people uniting, there's nothing stopping it. So those are just some thoughts that come to mind. And there's been a lot of power. I would say all the previous presidential candidates, for the most part, excluding maybe JFK and very few, they've all seeked, and in different ways, maybe even so, power. It's just a corrupt system. I mean, the party system, our forefathers warned us. Political parties are evil, and they are, and they brew evil people. And those are just a few. We have 435 seats. Come on, America. Like, that's easy to replace when you have a movement backing it, and that's coming no matter. And so we'll be able to rid of these issues, the combative battles, and really the focus of the FAA. And I don't trust their focus entirely, but I still want to give the benefit of the doubt. And Elon, just launch the rocket somewhere where it doesn't hurt people. Solution.
Yeah, that's good. I see the solution focus. There's also, besides the actual solutions to some problems that are clear, like these, there's also value judgments that we make as individuals about what we think is right and what we think is wrong. And I think that that's another sort of spectrum besides the, let's say, political spectrum, besides the what you believe is reality and what you believe is not reality, the misinformation. There's another spectrum, which is our value systems. And I'm seeing some mismatches in the value systems across the United States that creates what looks like polarization and a lot of anger between, let's say, the left and the right, you could call them. I see that the left, when it comes to Doge, is very angry that they're taking away services for, let's say, people who are less fortunate, people like Medicaid or things like that. On the other hand, on the right, people are excited that we're spending less and the national debt is going to go down and we'll have a more fiscally responsible government. And I think that those are both reasonable values to me. The value of helping people who are less fortunate, and then also the value of everybody taking care of themselves. It's sort of that independent libertarianism, you could call it, where people are expected to work to make their own living, and that entitlements are perhaps an impediment to that in some way. So I wanted to just get your perspective on this, because I think that you have maybe a little bit of a different perspective than me, and I want to be able to not only understand you, but also to model to people how people can have a conversation about these things without anger and without yelling at each other, but kind of seeing different sides of the same story. So what do you think about the sort of dismantling of some of these government spending institutions, the Medicaid, for example, and things like that?
I mean, any person in office that takes money from a pharmaceutical industry, they don't care about the well-being of people. And I don't feel that the best of intentions are built around the current Medicaid system, Medicare. Like, there's so much room for improvement. So I've got to give some leniency there of, okay, I wish that in taking away funding simultaneously, administration could offer the solution that's going to be incorporated. Okay, if you're going to cut back X amount, Medicaid, what are we going to do to help our people? And I think that's where they're falling short. If you're going to pull it out that quick, have something to replace it with. There is a lot of beautiful things that RFK Jr. is doing. I know he wants to do a lot more, and he's going to be unable to do that, but I'm grateful for the good that he's doing. Our health industry it's really bad. I mean, there's so much needless death and problems. I mean, and we can go into the vaccine. I mean, everything, and the money and the Fauci and so I don't know. It's just, I don't have an answer across the board, but I just really want us to be able to heal as a nation, to be healthier. I love that we're removing toxins from food and becoming more aware. I downloaded an app the other day. I'm going to be scanning all my food right now that I purchased on a scanning. It's a little carrot on it. I forget the name of it. And which one is it? Buka? Oh, Yucca. Thank you, Yucca. And it's just, I'm taking charge of my own health. And I ask that people out there that you take first and foremost. Nobody's going to care about your health more than you. And the government, for sure, under the system that it's under, I wouldn't trust them to take care of me as well. So I wish they had a solution they could offer simultaneously with the cutback. That would be, I think that could really bring people together.
Yeah. It's interesting that, you know, you're very pro, it seems like you're very pro what RFK is doing, which is essentially, in my view, is regulating the food industry to some extent, where they're stopping them from doing things that are harming the health of Americans. But at the same time, very, well, I guess it's a different situation, but it seems like you're against the Fauci vaccines push that the government did during the Biden administration. Actually, it was also under the original Trump administration. And
I'm for freedom of choice. If you wanted to take the vaccine, do it. If you don't.
Right.
That's what I'm for. You won't really see me like an against, anti, however, for freedom of choice.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I think that so if I can offer the counter perspective that I've heard and understood is on a public health level, if everybody would get vaccinated, and of course if people have the wrong intentions that are making the vaccines, or the government is using them as a tool of control or things like that, obviously that can get very dystopian. But if we trust, for example, that the government was doing the vaccines actually to stop the spread of a pandemic, and that the vaccines were safe as they were claiming, then to me, there is a public health argument to be made that the vaccines can protect people who can't get them. For example, people who are immunocompromised, who wouldn't be able to take the vaccines. Some very elderly people that ended up dying because of the pandemic, and maybe young children. I could see that as an argument for why they would roll it out in such an intense and sort of authoritarian way. But on the other hand, the freedom of choice for whoever wants to take it is also a value that I hold dear, is being able to make your own choices with your own body. So do you see that as like a valid sort of argument between two sides of a value system, or do you think that it's more of like the government was just trying to control us and something like that?
I think the beginning of vaccines, there was more of a purity to them. I don't want to take away what great it has done to save lives. Over time, people control. They see it as prosperous, money. I followed the money on the recent vaccine. It's not for me. If somebody else thinks it's for them, great. The reality is we live in a world where not everyone is going to take it. So it's not even realistic. It's like saying, let's just have no more guns in this world and live in peace. Yeah, that's idealistic. I wish that could be the case, but we've seen over time, as concealed carry becomes legalized across the country, we have less crime. And then the government has to make these crazy laws of these big guns that, it's like, making it divisive when it really doesn't need to be. These are all tactics that they use. So those are my thoughts on that issue.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I love listening to yours as well. This is how I build free and equal elections, is listening to fellow leaders and intellects, and I absorb the information. And it's just such a joy to sit here with you today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a moment to talk about some other things? I wrote down the things that I was interested in talking
about. So thoughtful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I try. Do you want to talk about some of these other things? They're interesting topics.
Sure. Which ones?
So I wrote down a few. One of them is the current situation with the DEI and how they're dismantling the DEI in this country, the DEI initiatives and all that, diversity, equity, inclusion. In my perspective, it seems to be coming from a place of not being able to recognize institutional racism, that we need to give a leg up to people who have been historically haven't had the same opportunities. But I can also see the other perspective that Elon often espouses, which is that undermines equality and can actually create more division between races. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you have a perspective on this issue?
I want us to be in a world where we're so prosperous and with so much love that we see beyond all of this. I mean, to have the battle of one race and one gender, I mean, women were the last to be given the right to vote. And John Lennon and Yoko wrote a song about that. And women are the nigger, if I say that, of the world, but that's their song out of respect. And indigenous, I feel the compassion of in all different tribes, what's happened to them, to African Americans, having met Amelia Boynton Robinson of Selma, who registered 1920s as an African American in a buggy wagon with her mom, people to vote, and ran for Congress. I think it was the 60s, garnered 10% of the vote, again, as an African American woman in Selma. And she sparked the March in Montgomery. So, I mean, I met this woman and I just saw her heart. And I'm here to lead a movement that leads from a place of heart, and another divisive issue. And it's important in all different ways, whether it's women. I mean, you can even say men and what's happening, maybe not as much, or at this time, a little more to them, and all the nationalities, all the races, and preferences of lifestyles and so on. And it's just, I'm on a different paradigm of like, let's get together and be heart-centered and unite and recognize that we've all had some, and give credit and give due and give a little more heart and compassion to those who have been through it more in the cycle of life than others. So I really want to unite our nation and break beyond these divisive things and talk about them throughout the tour, and make sure that we don't lose history. Because of technology, we do not and will not have to go through the same vicious cycle of chaos that we've been doing, gosh knows how for how long, because history only seems to go back so far over and over again. But again, technology is a game changer. And once we rise as a nation from a place of love with solutions and get people involved in the process, cultural shift, cultural change, I welcome everybody. The only thing I ask is a big ask, is coming from a place of nonviolent action. That's it.
Yeah, that's
a big one.
That is a big one.
It's important.
That ended up being one of the premises of our peace issue, which is over here with the Dalai Lama. He had sent an essay and about nonviolence, specifically about peace coming from peace. You know, there was a quote, it's misattributed to Gandhi. I forgot who actually said it. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. And you know, violence cannot create nonviolence. Violence creates more violence. So that was a big foundation for the peace issue, and I totally agree. And I also see the systemic violence when we look at let's say, using military for deportations as an example, against people that haven't had due process or been, you know, had a day in court, to people that maybe were innocent that were deported. I see that as a form of violence too. So that's why when I see these types of things, I wonder if I need to stand up and stop things from devolving more. And, you know, when you talk
I'm glad you brought that up again. I had a thought on that. And that is, we see the AOC and Sanders and the protests. People have asked me to go to them. Freedom of choice. I'm not here to protest anything anymore. I've done it in the past. In my 20s, I did a protest. First lawsuit I filed of 3, all for justice, professional justice. Standing up was against Democratic House Majority Leader Michael Madigan, using full-time state employees to successfully knock independent Ralph Nader off the ballot in 2004 when I did the statewide job, versus national 4 years later for Nader. And so I just really foresee our, you know, nation, like the protests, you know, I've done the protests. I foresee our nation, this is part of the process. The Trump administration is part of the process. I'm glad some good's happening. I hope many of us can see there's some good happening, which is better than before, meaning many cycles before. I can work with that, but I'm not here to protest. I'm here to build a new paradigm. And I'm here to implement free and equal, what's built around the people as a visionary, to inspire people to get engaged in the process, whether it's giving back in your community, to the homelessness, to the elder, driving it to the grocery store, bringing groceries back. It just, whatever it does, there's no like, I wish I could do more. Just do what you can. And that's the ripple that spreads across so I totally support what people need to do. Freedom. I've done it. I've been through that. that's in the past for me. Now I'm here to create a movement that gives people something to do to build a better world.
Yeah, I love that. Instead of protesting, instead of sort of coming at it from a negative angle and anger, you're coming at it from, okay, here's what's happening. All right, I'm going to build something better.
Yes.
I like that. That's very clear-headed of you. I think maybe
not
comes
even
from
better. It's something that offers solutions. Woodstock music, great. It faded. It's always here in the heart. It didn't have a solution-based direction, and that's what we have. That's different from any other idea.
Yeah, I like that.
And technology enables that to happen.
Yeah. So I see that as very clear-headed of you. Maybe it comes from the meditation or the spiritual practice that you have from Bali, where you're able to see above the chaos and say, okay, chaos is happening. Let's make a system that's going to work better and be less chaotic and be more heart-centered and compassionate. I think that's wonderful.
That's also being around people like yourself. I surround myself with like-minded individuals. This is a very unique, having interviewed thousands of times and national media and all, this is finally, thank you, bringing politics and spirituality and art, because that's the fundamental, that's the basis of where I come from. The second lawsuit I filed when going up, basically I sold my jewelry company, and that's a whole nother thing you can find on Wikipedia, but I got $250,000 the settlement. I used most of that to build free and equal elections. So this is built from the arts, of design, and taking a challenging situation and shifting it into a positive one. So that's what I do. And we all go through things in life. We're all dealt different cards. There's no way to compare one or another. It's how you choose the cards that are dealt. And learning from them, I feel deep in my heart that we can really rise above a lot of the needless chaos and distractions and challenges of life. It's a short, fleeting moment. And here at Free and Equal Elections, we're going to make it a lot of fun. Yes. To change our nation, unite our nation, awake our nation.
I very much hope that you're successful in that. And I guess that brings me to my last question here, which is that when you see what's happening with consolidation of power right now, with Doge getting rid of a lot of the government agencies, the regulators, and then the Trump administration as a whole sort of defying and pushing back the judicial branch of government, trying to basically make the executive branch more powerful. Does that give you any worry that the work that you're doing for election reform may run up against a wall where there aren't elections anymore, or at least not real ones, like what you see in Putin's Russia or Castro's Cuba or Maduro's Venezuela? Does that give you any worry when you see that happening, or do you think that that's a catastrophizing or alarmist perspective that the media is trying to put on us?
Well, again, when Trump went against Massey, that's when I went, okay, there's this I really don't like. And I would tell him that. I'd still say, hey, how are you? But it just, why do that to somebody that is truly a voice for the people? You can watch the documentary Off the Grid. It shows Thomas Massey building his house from the ground up. And no, I'm not alarmed. I don't live, and I've learned from Amelia Boynton Robinson. She told me, I have no fear. And she said, be sure you're right, then go ahead. A voteless people is a hopeless people. So I'm here to bring the solutions to where you can see your vote being counted. And the Trump administration, the one thing that is lacking is compassion. I mean, there's true compassion. I mean, the messaging will be and can be from a place of love and not anger and not attacks. And I see moments of kindness there with him, and arguably a lot of people in politics, but the root of somebody in that position, 2 words I have to say to that is love wins. And that's where I stay. I stay on that paradigm. And so no fear.
So you're not worried that the consolidation of power is going to lead to a dictator situation like, in those other countries that I mentioned, because you have an optimistic perspective on love winning rather than necessarily believing that Trump is not trying to do that, right? Like, do you think that that he's trying to do that, or do you think like that he's trying to take power for power's sake in a similar way to what we've seen in other countries where their dictators are ruling? Or do you think that he's, and I know you were saying he didn't like what he did with Massey, and obviously there's, people do things that we don't like and some things that we do like, but do you think overall that he's got this intention of taking power in that kind of dictatorial way? Or do you think that that's sort of just, some alarmism that we get?
I mean, he's put in a position where he's left with no choice. The D's and R's have gained up against them. It's a two-party system. It's really a business. Dr. Ron Paul said behind the scenes, the D's and R's are friends. And it goes beyond that. What else is Trump going to do to make change? Like, he is a force of hand. He's a businessman. It's what he knows how to do but that's just not a real long-term movement. So we take the good from it, and there's no stopping. I'm going back to the idea. Once it comes, there's nothing getting in its way. So I don't fault him. I get why he's doing that. There's only so much traction he's going to be able to achieve with Congress. I mean, we can see, right?
Yeah.
Early on, the blocks. So, I mean, if I were Trump, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, and so on, I'd support a movement that wants to and will replace most members of Congress, because it doesn't get much worse than what we currently have in our nation. And whether it's Trump, and I mean, Massey calls it hardcore. I mean, that's why it's like, Trump, don't go after the one bright light in Congress. I mean, and hopefully he apologizes one day. He does that from time to time. Massey is fine either way, but it's just the right thing to do. And that dives into the compassion and the love. And that's what I want to pull out of everyone, whatever role they're in. So
yeah,
that's the vision.
Well, I hope you're right that we're not in this crumbling democracy time. One thing that's interesting is you were mentioning that he has to take the power because of the sort of morass of the quagmire.
It's what he knows.
Right. It's what he knows. And at the same time, it's like trying to get through this system that you can't get anything done. And as I think that partly why people support strongmen in general and people taking power like that in other countries where there are currently dictators ruling is because those countries got to a point where everything was so hard to do anything and hard to get anything good done that they just supported somebody who was just like, I'm going to get it done. And that's what I worry, is that it's sort of a natural evolution from sort of like you have a democratic government and then things get built up. Elon Musk talks about this all the time. It's too many regulators get built up. He talks about it as too many referees on the field. So if you're trying to play soccer and you're on a field and there's referees on every inch of the field, and you can't kick the ball without hitting a referee. And that actually, I saw this interview yesterday with him where he was saying that you have to get rid of some of those referees because obviously otherwise you can't do anything. And what I worry about is that getting rid of so many referees, potentially some of the ones that are checking the power of the government, is just sort of an evolutionary cycle that happens where these referees build up on the field. Then somebody's like, I'm just going to get rid of most of them. And then they end up in a position where they actually have so much power that they can rig the next election. They can just continue to stay in power, as you see with like Maduro in Venezuela, where there was an election, he essentially lost, it seems like, and then he just stayed in power anyway. And the people that won basically had to flee. That's just what I worry about personally. And I'm just maybe expressing my perspective. It's a worry. I don't think I know that for a fact that that's what's happening. I just worry that is a potential outcome. And that's, that can get in the way of your work. That's what because I think your work is so important to fix our electoral system. But if there is no real election in the future, then it doesn't really matter,
The dictatorship, I mean, I've seen the two-party system that way for many cycles. And now there's a problem with Trump doing what the two-party system's been trying to do since its existence. It's interesting to me to go to Washington, D.C. and people to have so much anger towards Trump. I'm like, but yet not the previous Biden and Obama and Clinton and Bush. And you have anger towards Trump because he is doing in a different way what the two-party system is doing and actually doing some good, we deserve and will have even greater in the future. When Top 2 primary passed in 2012 in California, I knew at that time it would become and was the biggest threat to the electoral process ever. And a week before the 2012 debate, it was 2010, it passed in California when Marianne ran for Congress, is what I recall. So I have to make sure. In 2012, I did the presidential debate with Larry King, but a week prior, I went to Arizona because Top 2 primary, again, only the top 2 vote getters in the primary advance the general election. This sterilizes political cleansing. Washington had already had it for 10, 15 years. It's like Louisiana style politics. You just have the same 2 parties getting reelected over and over again, as they have in Louisiana, excluding one that I think passed away. So it's just promotes the 2-party system. So in Arizona, they tried to push it through as Prop, escapes my mind, 121, I believe, vice versa. And in any case, I went in there, put on a panel at the Goldwater Institute, that's known right-leaning. I had the chair of the Democratic, Republican, Libertarian, Green, and myself for a national perspective, as well as the president of the League of Women Voters, and did a tour across the entire state of Arizona, 5 counties, 5 days, releasing the national information of what Top 2 really is. My little $10,000 up against multi of millions, I don't know, 5, 10 million. And the chair of the president of the League of Women Voters said, this is the reason Top 2 did not pass in California. Had it passed in Arizona, I meant to say, had it passed, it was already planned to go across the nation. I knew at that time, had that passed, it would be very challenging to go up against, and we were able to squash it. So that's what I do. I don't live in a world of fear. I build something so big, so fast. The truth always prevails in the end, and heart and compassion and love. So while I hear you, it does not even concern me one bit, but I'm aware of it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you for being here with me today to talk about some of these issues and the bigger picture of hopefully making our system of elections and presidential government power, fixing that. I really appreciate your efforts and your perspective and your solution orientation, because I think that's really what we need. And I sincerely hope that you are successful. I sincerely hope that.
I appreciate that. I wanted to elaborate on last year. Free and Equal hosted 4 presidential debates. I was also hired to get RFK Jr. on the ballot, Super PAC American Values. And I didn't get the job of the campaign, and it's all meant to be because I put on 4 presidential debates, Free and Equal, and one of them co-moderated Representative Thomas Massey. The last one with Dave Walker, co-founder of No Labels, also former U.S. Comptroller Dave Walker. And so the support around this is so diverse in building free and equal elections. At the last debate, we had artists come in and perform a branding United We Stand to kick off the tour. Our executive producer produced Clinton's inauguration, to Trump's Apprentice, to for Adele, Rihanna, Lady Gaga, you name it, and Taylor Swift. He's producing the tour for us next year, 8 stops across the country. Kevin Sanford with Ryan Polito. We're looking to bring the Roots in. If they hear this, it's coming your way soon. And so to really play the music, we're looking at Santa Barbara Bowl and maybe at Red Rocks Amphitheater, Madison Square in New York. You're going Miami. We're talking Nashville, Texas, and so on. So this is going to be built from the ground up, bringing in national artists as well as local artists, local community leaders, and those panels and discussions, and members running for Congress. So it's a huge vision. And I've been down in Florida and just flew in from New York to DC to Florida last couple of days, building this from the ground up. So it's happening. And freeandequal.org. You can go to freeandequal.org. To sign up for more information and see the vision, the United We Stand tour.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here to support as much as I can.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to your listeners for being here.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. And the excerpts from this conversation will be in the upcoming issue of Meditation Magazine.